think is quite fascinating. How far can we standardize things across the globe? How far do we have to adapt them? By the way, for me, culture is like a shared system of attitudes, values, meanings, beliefs, and behavior. Hofstede, the famous interculturalist, called it the software of the mind. And we all have different versions of this. So I think we're all coming to Agile with a different perspective. Is there a common view of what we understand by Agile? Maybe that's what you've been talking about in your conference. If I look at the Agile Manifesto from 2001, I also see certain cultural preferences embodied in that manifesto. Firstly, the manifesto seems to be made up by a group which is perhaps not particularly diverse. It was a group of men, I think. If I look at the signatories, they seem to be Americans, I think, or people living in America, in the USA. And they all seem to be from the area of software development, of course, because that was what it was designed for. But beyond that, we look at the values there, and there's a value of individualism. That's very much stressed, that the individual is important, more important than processes. We see it's very results-oriented, and I would say that's as an opposition to maybe process orientation. And we see that there's a preference for low uncertainty avoidance, which means that people are prepared to take risks and are not wanting to have everything to be certain. You can make mistakes and do things wrong. So my question to you, and it's really an open question, is to think about, well, how far does that apply in other places? It may be very suitable to what we know about US culture, but does it fit in other countries? Does it work in China or in India? Does it even work in Germany, where perhaps some people would say a strength of German industry is the fact that people have a clear process, follow rules, document things, and perhaps do things more slowly, but then have a solid result. So it's a question of how far this culture of Agile fits the culture that we're talking about. And when I speak about culture, I've given national cultural examples. For me, culture can also be a shared system of attitudes and values connected with generation or with region or with professional culture. So I would just say be a bit careful about this. Are we talking about the same thing? And how far does this really work in different places?
Yeah, I have a spontaneous reaction here, and this is because I'm not German, but I come from Sweden. And one of the things I noticed that is a little bit more predominant in Germany is this the thought of German engineering, which is a culture of a little bit of fear of making mistakes. Because the Germans like to really develop things very far, because you don't want to come out and then say, possibly risk someone saying, well, yeah, that's a stupid idea, or, that won't work. And I've seen this in other countries as well. Obviously, so culturally, it's not necessarily German. It's just very, very clear in Germany for me as a non-German. And because of that, I mean, having a really good failure culture, that it's okay to fail fast and stand up and move on, because we are so scared of saying something wrong and then, afterwards having to track back. So yeah, summarizing that, a good failure culture, and just saying, hey, it's okay to not know everything all the time straight away, but still try to help. I think that would go a long way.
My very spontaneous recommendation would be try it out. Try it out. I mean, what can go wrong? And if you don't try it, and what I keep on saying to my team, if you take 10 decisions and one is wrong, I help you to fix the one. But otherwise, I have to be involved in 10 decisions. So try it out.
Of the different customer demands that you might have. I saw that in some things I was working at Siemens with customer. We did a program about customer orientation. We did it globally, and it was called Understanding Customers. And we had some Indian colleagues actually, and they were saying things like, okay, we're a bit frustrated with Siemens how long it takes for us to get a quotation for something, or we get an offer when we want to plan something. And the Germans were saying, well, okay, this is something. If we want to give you a quotation, we need to do a very, very detailed analysis of your requirements and of the situation. Then we can give you an offer within several weeks for maybe this was in the case of this was a turbine business, the Germans were saying, okay, but they just wanted a rough quotation, but the Siemens colleagues were not prepared to do this. They wanted to do a very thorough one. Yeah. And I said, well, to the Germans, I said, well, you need to be quicker and you need to be more sensitive to this. And then in the break, the Indian colleague came to me and he said, I really like your training. Would you do some training in India? And I said, well, and then he said to me, how much would it cost? And I said, well, I have to do some analysis. So I found myself falling into this same trap of not really meeting what the customer wanted. So it's a question, I think, of not saying there's any one right way of doing things, but really understanding the customer and understanding the needs of the customer and then reacting to that. So I see that as part of an agile process.
One of the good things we're seeing is you no longer have to hire people because of their location or the preparedness to move to a location. You get the right people, and you get the right person for the right job, no matter where they are. And with the younger people, they can adapt very quickly. And we have working nomads that are everywhere in the world and just delivering the work. Even more exciting that we are just starting to try out, because there's still things like HR, works contract, and compliancy that kind of keeps some of us back. For example, we have Works Council. They're very strong in Germany. I know they are with Siemens too. You have to adhere to the law. So sometimes you can't go totally wild, but there's still so many possibilities that we have not yet started looking into, but we're just starting with flexible work styles, job sharing, teams that are no longer hierarchical, but totally flexible, and even rotate in having a team manager depending on who's there. And this is something I heard from a Siemens group actually a couple of years ago that they also tried out. Those are exciting new ways of setting up the workplace that is going to make us successful, but it needs to be handled within labor law.
No, I think it all comes back really on looking at the individuals, and understanding the different cultures. Rob said it earlier on that are on the team, exactly, with handling opportunities differently, hierarchies, but it's also a huge opportunity. So I don't look at it as challenges. I actually look at the opportunities such a very diverse team brings. So from that perspective, really, giving the responsibility to each individual and clearly say, and that's going back to the agile leadership and empowerment, is I fully trust you. Go ahead. If you need help, then please come back and let me know. I'm sitting often 10, 20,000 kilometers away. So it works only on a trust level, and actually a strong vision, a strong shared sense of ownership, and working towards one common goal. These are some of the essentials that then ultimately make us successful as a team.
And as Evelyn said, I think it's really about giving them also the confidence and supporting them also when, for example, things are going wrong or wrong decisions have been taken. So there is always a way, there is always a remediation. And if you see that, I think you can really, you feel or confident to take this accountability. So going back to the Next Gen Fem Leader program, they had, for example, they have the task to get familiar with certain topics. They have never heard about it before, or they have no connection to it. And in the beginning, they were all, oh no, how do I do it? And so on. They started to reach out to the half of the company, started to build their network to get in this topic. And now they're coming back and tell me, this has been the greatest experience of the whole program. We know now we can make it, and we know that it's successful. And so you can build on the future that with giving this way of, or this feeling of success, that they keep on doing it also in the future.